The social and educational landscape for children in London boroughs is changing, and not always for the better. In July 2020, the Youth Violence Commission stated that it was changing its strategy from focusing on tackling the violence perpetrated by young people to tackling what it called the shocking levels of violence and mistreatment inflicted on young people throughout their lives. Far too many young people have seen their own friends stabbed to death. Others have had to endure the crushing experience of witnessing or becoming the victims of domestic violence themselves. A remarkably high proportion of young people committing serious acts of violence have been excluded from mainstream education. An established body of research highlights the links between young people disengaging or being excluded from school and an increase in the likelihood of being victims or perpetrators of serious violence. Tragically, in the 5 years from 2013 to 2018, the number of victims of serious youth violence in London alone rose by over 1,000 cases per year. The Youth Violence Commission have highlighted that our education system is failing many children and young people. The most prominent sources of concern were declining school budgets, a shortfall of 21 million in 2020 across all schools in Haringey alone, rising rates of off-rolling, fixed-term and permanent exclusions. Funding cuts to education have led to reductions in pastoral support services, which in turn impact on teachers' ability to perform their roles effectively. Between 2009 and 2018, the number of pupils in state-funded primary and secondary schools rose by 8.4%. However, during the same period, the total school spending per pupil in England fell by 9% in real terms. The reality of our current educational landscape is that vulnerable and at-risk young people can only gain access to the kind of enhanced support required after they have been excluded from mainstream education. The cost of alternative provision schooling is estimated to be somewhere between £17,000 and £18,000 per year per pupil, £11,000 greater than the average cost of mainstream education per pupil. In the year 2019 to 2020, a total of 15,400 pupils were registered in pupil referral units in the UK at a cost of around £270 million. And yet, despite being able to provide such enhanced levels of support, outcomes for pupils in alternative provision centres are incredibly poor. In 2015 to 2016, only 18% of children who were subjected to multiple fixed-term exclusions and just 7% of children who were permanently excluded went on to achieve passes in English and Maths GCSEs. There is no indication that improvement is on the horizon. The number of children subjected to fixed and permanent exclusions from mainstream education has been rising every year since 2012. In 2016, an average of 40 children were permanently excluded from school each day. This number was 50 times higher for fixed-term exclusions, with 2,000 children being subjected to a fixed-term exclusion on a daily basis. One of the major problems with our current approach to exclusion is that by the time children are placed in an alternative provision, they will have already undergone many months or years of feeling as though they are failing to fit into the mainstream mould. Race and ethnicity. Our research discovered instances where national statistics provided under the heading BAME provided an inaccurate picture for pupil exclusion rates in 2020 by race and ethnicity. When aggregating all black ethnicities together, there is only a slight overrepresentation by national population. This hides the true story behind Black Caribbean pupils' experiences, where the population is overrepresented by 300%. Similarly, aggregating non-Black and non-Asian ethnicities together would hide the experiences of pupils with a traveller, Gypsy or Roma heritage. Any claim to overrepresentation of the BAME community in the pupil referral unit population is completely misleading with regards to both the inclusion of Asian pupils, who are underrepresented by population, and also to pupils of Chinese ethnicity, for whom the pupil referral population was 0. Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities Reports 2021. This report's publication has been controversial. It is clear that some of the findings have been and continue to be contested and also misrepresented in the mainstream media. However, this report has made 20 recommendations it feels are vital towards combating the causes and symptoms of both direct racism and institutional racism. 1/3 of these recommendations are aligned with the aims and intentions of Awaken Genius. Recommendation 6. Replicate the factors of educational success for all communities. The word community here is significant. It is clear from studies and schools across the globe that when communities are fractured or failing to provide equal opportunities for vulnerable pupils, especially those specific races and ethnicities unable to access the full benefits experienced by the majority population, the remedy has always included the infusion of education with a sense of community and personal empowerment. From the national level to the global scale, every time a school, which is situated within a problematic community, moves away from punitive approaches for behaviour improvement and towards community approaches, the results are staggeringly good. Recommendation 12. Prevent harm, reduce crime and divert young people away from the criminal justice system. It is important to note that institutions are beginning to recognise that the intervention required is ineffective when reactionary. For example, after pupils are excluded, after the child has established themselves within an antisocial or criminal group of peers. Awaken Genius is evolving a supplementary curriculum to engage children in the process of building confidence, self-awareness, and a sense of belonging to a community, and all the while bridging the child's development across to their school learning through the inclusion of an inspiring numeracy and literacy program. Awaken Genius can be seen as a double-edged sword in the fight against crime. There is the consistency of developing academic skills alongside the personal development, which is designed to reduce the effects of trauma, disengagement, anxiety, and build the children's connection to a greater sense of purpose and community responsibility. And all of this happens before the pupils move into secondary education, improving the chances of preemptive intervention rather than costly reactive deterrence and potential incarceration. Recommendation 13. To build social and cultural capital. The statistical evidence for school exclusions confirms the presence of a significant and troubling outlook for specific communities of minority ethnicities. Awaken Genius is deeply rooted in developing a strong cultural awareness, particularly for the Black community in London, whose academic performance and rate of exclusions from school has been consistently poor. Recommendation 15. Empower pupils to make more informed choices to fulfill their future potential. Whilst this recommendation was aimed at older children looking towards higher education, it is clear that the principle should not be reserved for older children, as young children make choices which affect their lives all of the time. Empowerment and community and collaborative learning are central to the pedagogy of Awakened Genius. Recommendation 17 is to encourage innovation. The right mix of creativity along with the mainstream school curriculum supports pupils to be innovative and also encourages them to learn new things. Pupils excel as good communicators in addition to improving emotional and social skills. A creative and collaborative classroom community, as well as believing in one's own creativity, can completely transform the way pupils acquire knowledge and how they apply it in everyday life. Recommendation 18. Improve safety and support for children at risk. Awakened Genius provides additional time with children after school, a positive supervision, regular contact with strong role models, and safe learning activities. Recommendation 20. To teach an inclusive curriculum. The cultural connections taught in Awakened Genius classrooms and our clear inspiration from Black community values, for example Ubuntu, are a strong and sustainable contribution towards this aim. The curriculum is being developed by a panel of experienced, well-qualified and expert teachers, educationalists and consultants to meet the highest standards of pedagogy. The science behind the teaching. Awakened Genius's curriculum is currently under development, with its first prototype lessons and the curriculum intent documents being crafted at the time of recording. However, we have been able to establish the potential efficacy of the school curriculum from these initial documents and meetings of Awakened Genius partners. Visible learning. The starting point for research was to consult the world's biggest ever research project on teaching strategies, which was conducted by Professor John Hattie. This study was conducted over 12 years by thousands of dedicated researchers and teachers. The results of the study are easily accessed in the culminating table produced by Hattie, which was able to list 150 influences on progress in learning in order of effect size on learning. The following is a list of 18 influences Hattie's study measured, which coincides with a feature of Awakened Genius's curricula. Each influence is listed with the effect size and its rank 1 to 150 from the original list of influences on achievement. Trauma dysregulation and attachment theory. The connection between trauma and disengagement from education or engagement with antisocial behaviours and crime is well evidenced. There is a significant likelihood that the pupils Awakened Genius is supporting will be experiencing trauma or continuing to experience the effects of trauma from their past. Our research has identified several areas where the Awakened Genius methodology might be accommodating to the presence of trauma in pupils. Although not technically speaking a therapeutic intervention, the process by which pupils learn in Awakened Genius lessons appears to have potential for therapeutic value. Awakened Genius lessons will provide role models in self-regulation, consistent relationships. There are no criteria for pass or fail. It's just about participation, and there is plenty of time and scope for self-evaluation. Polyvagal theory. Polyvagal theory is the comprehensive understanding of a consistently observable and measurable biological phenomenon. Polyvagal theory is a powerful tool in neuroscience and psychophysiology used to understand how perceptions of safety and threat are biologically encoded and influence our behaviour, often outside of our awareness. Basic safety is essential for allowing the higher brain structures to activate, those responsible for creativity, learning and generativity, making the world a better place. Traditionally, the majority of modern education systems around the world have placed a higher value on thought rather than feelings. In the UK, parenting and education strategies are predominantly designed around expanding and enhancing cognitive process whilst inhibiting body feelings and impulses to move. Whilst the heart-mind connection has been a central understanding of what it means to be human in dozens of cultures in the non-Western world, it has only been in the past 50 years that psychology has slowly begun to look at the validity of studying the body in conjunction with the mind. Although both behaviour and cognition are dependent on the nervous system, until very recently, neither applied behaviourism nor cognitive science incorporated an understanding that it was our neural physiological state which acted as a mediator of both our behaviour and psychology.
Permanently excluded for bringing in a knife to school. I was being approached by other groups of young people, and then when I told the school, they didn't do anything about it.
I know my friends that have knives and guns. It would be so easy for me to get one. I'll just ask them, but I wouldn't do that. It's only if I got threatened, if I got stabbed or something.